Just what worked for you and what didn't, a graduate told me. One day I led a kid's field trip through the harvested cabbage aisles, changed the starter in one of the trucks, and then biked down to school, and I thought, I just learned so much more this morning than I would in a normal classroom. We always had 6 different projects going on, and in every job I was producing real things I could put my hands around. Pulling carrots or picking kale, I felt something bigger than myself. A good life will include work that feels necessary, and if everybody's got to eat, someone needs to grow food. Hannah is now a sophomore in college, where she's studying to be a therapist herself. Agriculture-supported community is also Vinette. She's a grandmother of 20. She lives with her husband in a 50-unit, low-income, senior citizen apartment complex managed by the Salvation Army. As she told me, everybody here is on a fixed income. We're all retired. Social Security is literally 99% of our income. There's no central kitchen. Everyone cooks for him or herself, and what they can get to cook with is basically what they buy on a weekly bus trip to Walmart. The farmer's market is out of reach. People don't drive, Annette told me, and it costs $9 to take a cab there. That $9 blows their budget. So who can help? Again, organizers asked, who can contribute what people like Vinette need? And who needs what people like Vinette can contribute? Any guesses who, or ideas? Who can bring a farmer's market to these seniors? What's one idea? What, a farmer? So it's bring a farm. Okay, yeah. Okay, one element, you're definitely gonna need someone who grows the food. Can't just be a community group, but maybe someone with the capacity. Yeah, which kids?
The kids at the farm, from the community gardens, all their little gardens.
Yeah, maybe some of the community gardens, yeah. All, depends on your situation. In this particular situation, the teenagers and youth harvest. The college students, remember, already had a CSA they were serving. They already had customers that they were dealing with directly. And these teenagers were kind of jealous. They were like, well, we're working with you side by side. Why do you get to see it all the way through to the finish? They wanted some of that face time. And I don't know if any of you have ever tried to incarcerate 500,000 16-year-olds, but it turns out that's more expensive than paying them a couple bucks more than minimum wage, having a therapist on there too, teaching them to farm, having them grow food. You even have a few $100 left over to rehab an old red van with a little bit of a refrigeration space in it to bring that food around town. These are kids growing the food already. They have the capacity to deliver the food, and they have the ability, and this is important, to deliver it at best, break even, deliver it at below farmer's market rate. The idea isn't to compete with the farmer's market, but to deliver to people who would not otherwise have access to the farmer's market. None of these projects are supplying the general farmer's market or even restaurants in the community, because those are already served by local commercial small-scale farmers. These are about serving those new faces of local food. The teenagers in Youth Harvest started a program called Mobile Market. It's a reduced price farmers market with the food they've grown going to seniors, developmentally disabled adults, and military veterans, and a half dozen low-income housing complexes across town. I told you they travel in that bright red rehab van. They set up in about 30 minutes. They sell the fresh organic vegetables they've grown themselves at prices half at most of the regular farmer's market. Here's the van. Here they are unloading. And there's Vinette all the way in the back. I got choked up the first time I saw this in action. Think about it. Here you have literally the most vulnerable members of a community caring best for one another. The low-income seniors provide the at-risk teens work experience and a sense of purpose. The teens in turn offer companionship, convenient, affordable local food, and genuine hope for the future. Remember that stat about farmers markets, 10 times the number of conversations. These seniors are starved for good food, but they are just as starved for the community that comes with a farmer's market. They don't just get this food, they get a farmer's market. We're proud to be able to have these people come to us, Vinette told me. At least 15 to 20 of us show up every week. Over a summer at the market, we recognize the kids, and they recognize us too. They say, hey, how you feeling? A lot of us don't get to see our grandchildren as often as we'd like. To see these happy young people involved in their community and proud that they can deliver food to us gets our old hearts cooking. I like that phrase, old hearts cooking. Hopefully they'll cook a little longer with this good food instead of what they're getting elsewhere. And maybe I like even more that phrase, happy young people. She doesn't know these kids' background. She doesn't know Hannah before, but she knows her. She sees her every week for an hour. They hang out. Hannah's working all week with her in mind to deliver that kind of food, all right? And, they're talking about food, they're trading recipes, they're telling stories, they're asking about each other. They have a relationship. That's agriculture-supported community. Now the farm I've been talking about with the elementary school kids, the college students, the teens, the seniors, the veterans, and the community members subscribing to the CSA. In that case, there's more at play. CSA and mobile market notwithstanding, almost all of the food grown there, about 30,000 pounds of a year, is grown expressly to feed the clients of the local food bank. 12,000 unique clients. County has about 100,000 people. If you walk downtown, 1 in 8 people you see is served at some point by the food bank. Instead of leftover, damaged, donated cornflakes, tuna fish, peanut butter, frozen food, past date chocolate cake hasn't sold for 2 weeks in the grocery store. They're getting high quality, fresh, local organic food grown with them in mind, not leftover food either, grown with them in mind, delivered daily throughout the spring, summer, and fall. Here are those students at that farm getting the onions ready, getting some pumpkins and squash, green peppers, carrots. Looks like plums are in that day at the food bank. Now, that's one site. I told you, each of these sites has this kind of crazy ecosystem where people are giving and people are taking at the same time. And I told you I think there's about 15 of these sites now. Each one has a totally different setup depending on who can participate in that particular neighborhood and what they need. Let me give you a couple other examples. There's a partner farm across town that grows tens of thousands of pounds of produce more, in this case to go to the local homeless shelter soup kitchen. It has 50 plus community garden plots that go to surrounding residents in that case, most of whom live in mobile homes. And how does it grow all that food? There's one farmer on 1 acre. There's 1 acre with those community garden plots, another acre where there's one guy growing 30,000 pounds of food. How on earth is he doing that? He does not have these students. He does not have these teenagers. He's doing that with a program called Volunteer for Veggies, where people from the community can come in, they volunteer. Every 2 hours worked, you reap about 6, 8, 10 pounds of local organic vegetables. And you're doing a good deed because the food you're helping grow goes to that soup kitchen. So if you don't have the money for a CSA or the time for a community garden plot, you come and you volunteer for veggies, you can get that good local food, participate anyway. And because this guy's an amazing organizational and farm, genius basically, it's able to work out a lot. So there's literally about 30,000 pounds of extra food that some of it's going to a CSA, but the biggest recipient is the local soup kitchen. Just talked to Jesse, the chef there yesterday. He told me he'd just gotten a big bunch of winter carrots that the farmer had put up for winter. He said, so sweet. And here's Greg, the farmer there. You can see he's got tomatoes that day, potatoes, some zucchini in the box at the bottom, field of greens behind him. Some of the people, either CSA subscribers or volunteers for veggies. A third site started when a young mother about to give birth to her first child stared out the window of her house at a vacant lot. She'd seen these other farms and gardens across the city and asked organizers, could we have a community garden too? They said, we can help, but ask your neighbors. if we build it, people may not come. And some of you may have had that experience, coming in, giving somebody something. It doesn't always work out the way you planned. But if they build it, then it's theirs. Her husband literally went door to door, signed up 50 neighbors to support it or participate. And now it's an oasis in the city. We walk by, we see these even in beautiful Boulder, these little patches of nothing. And they can become this. Another site, there was a church. They were going to expand their parking lot, but they'd seen some of these other sites. And they knew a block away was transitional housing for homeless families. And they said, well, let's set up a community garden explicitly for those families, where the food they grow goes to those families. There's a winter CSA. This is Montana. They're not growing food in the winter in this case. I know there's some innovative stuff growing food year-round in this Boulder, Denver. It's not happening yet in Missoula. The winter CSA subscribers receive hundreds of pounds of food, easily canned, dried, frozen, or otherwise stored for consumption long past first snowfall. Tomatoes, corn, chard, squash, onions, potatoes, and more. So instead of getting a box every week, you get 2 or 3 huge boxes at the end of the growing season. And you can do all your pickling at once, or put all your potatoes up, or put your onions around to cure, or dry the tomatoes, or freeze them, or whatever. And you're doing it with other people, so you know there's that community there to kind of help you out and figure it out. And you're eating local food all winter round. There's a small farm run by local youth home occupants. There's another within a new low-income housing development whose inhabitants can subscribe to a CSA or pay for on-site farmers market goods with their food stamps. So they can afford it. And it's right there. You don't have to bring the stuff there anymore because you're growing it on-site. And there's a communal area where you can take cooking classes. Because if you've been eating French fries for a long time, a potato can be a scary thing. Okay? Even if you've been cooking for years, a celeriac, it can be a very intimidating thing. All right? There's a learning curve for sure to get into it. Here, for example, is Kim. She's a resident of that housing development, 30-year-old single mom. She graduated at the top of her class in high school, but a series of family tragedies delayed college for close to a decade. She was a freshman in college, had a couple deaths in the family, went home, didn't get back to school for 10 years. When I met her, she was working, going to school full-time, and she just adopted the 17-year-old son of her best friend after her best friend became homeless. Busy lady. When I first moved here, I wasn't too involved with the garden, she said. To be honest, I thought, oh, that's cool, but I'm not big on organic food. I'm Salish. She's a Native American woman. I grew up in St. Ignatius, Montana, where my tribe is from. It's a small town, 1,000 people if that, and people are really into sports like the basketball team. People are not into organic. In Missoula, everybody was like, oh, you're so lucky, you've got that garden. I was like, oh, the garden. I don't even use it. What happened? Well, in her case, her 4-year-old daughter, Lainey, literally dragged her into the garden. Kim thought they were going to get in trouble. She was like, we got to get out of here. Instead, they found a new community that reminded her of what she'd left behind in moving to the city. Neighbors would start talking about vegetables. It's good. It's so yummy. It's crunchy. It's fresh. I love it. That's not a conversation I normally would have had. In the summer, though, there were always people out at the farm stand or working on their plots. Kids played everywhere. You met people. It appealed to me because where I'm from, you talk to everybody no matter what. Families have close ties. By the end of her story, she and her neighbors on what they call single mom row are making pesto and fresh potato gnocchi pasta from scratch. They're talking up and down each other's arugula and other salad mix. She calls Lainey my tomato freak, and she's making plans to go to law school. That's agriculture-supported community. What's wonderful about this movement is when you think about it, making the case for it is so easy. Community, in its most basic sense, means interdependence. Who would have thought first graders could give college students a farm? Who would have thought teen drug addicts could bring fresh food and hope to low-income seniors? But without the farm, the first graders would never have made kale their daily snack. The teens would not have as much employment. The community gathers at these sites for public events. They support them through their CSA subscriptions. And so on through the Volunteers for Veggies, the community gardeners, the youth home residents, food bank and homeless shelter clients, single mom row, and more. Consistent to all these stories is no hero rushing in from the outside saying, you must do this, or here, take it, my gift. There aren't even givers and takers. It's about locals themselves working with organizers to assess again and again, what do I need and what can I contribute? People come into this movement in a million ways. That's the fun part for me as a storyteller. They might get pulled in by a kid on a scooter. They might get duct taped and dragged there with a shaved head. They might be college kids taking a class, and it ends up growing to be something that's an important part of their life. They might be a family that knows their neighbors a little bit better because they've got a garden there instead of a vacant lot. They might be a first grader who never knows his life would have been any different, but he's 20 years old, 25 years old, 30 years old, 35 years old, 40 years old, and he doesn't have diabetes. People come into this movement in a million ways, but it's just getting started because they're staying and making it theirs on their own terms. Based on this core principle, everyone is necessary. Everyone can contribute. Agriculture-supported community is flourishing across the country. Here in Boulder, the county already hosts over a dozen community gardens and CSAs, including community gardens whose gleanings and leftovers go to the food bank. The Flatirons Neighborhood Farm is an urban yard space donated by neighbors, feeding over 20 local families, partnering with local schools, restaurants, and nonprofit organizations to serve as a model for sustainable urban agriculture right here in Boulder. I talked to someone at the Fraser Meadows Retirement Home, got their own garden. Seniors are growing their own food with some assistance from the community. CU Going Local is university students who decided to take action beyond the campus. Talked to a couple of them today, doing a series of 20 gardens, they hope, for low-income residents of North Boulder. Also at CU, you've got Science Discovery with gardening classes for young people. And Growing Gardens has a program called Cultiva, where at-risk young people learn to garden together and sell that produce at the Boulder County Farmers Market. Transition Colorado brings people like me here to speak and puts out the Eat Local resource guide, how to grow some of your own food and support farms through CSAs and volunteering. They had their first Eat Local week in 2007, and they listed 7 restaurants sourcing locally. This September, it'll be 70. Exponential growth happens outside of Facebook. Social networking is a lot more than 5, 6 years old. If you're not involved in one of these projects or programs yet, check them out. Check out the information about them along with all the other local resources listed in the book. Consider them this spring and summer. There are people who happily devote every waking moment to the local food movement. But there are many more who join in an hour or two a week, a month, even an hour or two a year. They find a local CSA and ask a neighbor if they want to split it with them. They get a community garden plot and bring their kids along with them to weed or water. They volunteer for veggies one afternoon, drag a friend or two along, catch up, and bring home the food for a happy communal feast. I do hope you check out the book. It's gift-giving season. I think Passover is just around the corner. To summarize 240 pages in 3 sentences, though, these people tried this. Try it and you might like it too. Here's how. It's not a hard sell. Why is the local food movement just getting started? Because food, farms, and gardens, above and beyond feeding people, can be vital tools for personal and civic transformation. We need food, but we also need community. I think the town had to have these public farms and gardens. Josh Slotnick, the co-founder of Garden City Harvest, told me. People drive by now, they walk by, they come here and they congregate. It's part of the public sphere and dialogue and culture. Neighbors bring their kids to play in our playgrounds. We have special events and 200 people come. They walk by our beds and they notice things. What does agriculture-supported community look like? Just means, hey, on the right, sometimes when you're biking to town, there's a chicken. And some, a little pocket garden farm. Doesn't mean you have to maximize every space, grow the most food possible. Put a playground there every once in a while, Give the kids something to do while their parents hang out. Make them love hanging out by the dirt. Get the chefs out of the restaurants. They want the best possible food. Why not have them pick it right there? Or have the college students bring it right to them? You can see why 200 people come. Stuff in the squash blossoms. Got the satay. Skewers on the grill. Someone's tapping a keg in the background. There's guitar going on. That